So we've just been listening to Pascal Prache, the Prosecutor General for Nanterre. Some interesting points coming out of that. I'm still here with Angela Diffley, our International Affairs editor. A few things coming out. First of all, to say that this, he said, is clearly illegal use of firearms, so therefore, hence the officer held on involuntary manslaughter charges. We got context for the first time, I think, from an official into what preceded this circuit. He's saying this Polish registered car, this Mercedes-Benz, doing circuits and being stopped at different times by officers. Just recap some of those main points.
Yeah, of course, a police officer is always making a split-second decision, and we heard there that the police officer in question said that the driver was imperiling other people, already one passenger and somebody on a bike, and he shot because he felt there was a danger that he might go round again and cause further damage. You know, you're left to wonder why he didn't shoot the tyres or something, but you know, we're sitting in a television studio. It's easy to... But they have concluded that he illegally used his firearm and that the situation did not conform to the rules under which that sort of thing is allowed. Interesting as well to notice that there was no use of drugs or alcohol, it appears, either by the driver of the car or by the passengers, or indeed by either of the police officers in question. So it doesn't shed an awful lot of light. The new charges will no doubt give some succour to those people grieving over this. There is to be this march, of course, this afternoon at 2:00 when the family has called for a march. Some people have been calling for it to become a revolt. Others have been very clear they would like it simply to be a moment of respect for the 17-year-old who was killed. But no doubt any information that we heard just now will feed into the mood and the atmosphere at that march at 2:00.
And Pascal Prache saying that there's two investigations now into those surroundings of the death of Nahel. One of the issues is going to be looking at the political language. President Macron saying this is unforgivable, and you have the police unions saying, hang on a minute, where's the division between the state and the judiciary here? In the midst of this, though, there's an effort to try and stop, what is seen as lawlessness, continued rioting in the streets.
Yeah, I think it's worth coming back to that, the political comments. But just to get back to lawlessness, which we were talking about a little earlier, so we have situated the problems in these low-income banlieues in France. There is another strand of lawlessness in France, which, as I said, often in demonstrations, sometimes environmental demonstrations, which become hijacked or infiltrated or sometimes simply overflow on the far left. Now, what the state intelligence people really fear is some sort of convergence of these two strands, because it's well known that many on the far left would like some sort of convergence and to have a real revolt. Of course, the profiles of the people are very different. Most people on the far left infiltrating demonstrations are highly educated, often from quite well-off families. So the two groups are very different. And in 2005, when there was a major eruption of violence in the low-income banlieue in France, this was a real fear then, and it didn't really happen. So they will be watching and worrying that that might happen again this time.
It's interesting because when you listen to the rhetoric politically from some of the senior officials, not just Emmanuel Macron, and some of those saying this is incredible, having seen, obviously, with social media now, some of that footage. 2005, you mentioned this is a reference point because the then Interior Minister Nicolas Sarkozy, the later president, making remarks that seem to only fuel weeks of further riots, which is something that this government is trying to avoid.
It is treading a tightrope. And today, Emmanuel Macron said very clearly, he convened this emergency cabinet meeting, and he said very clearly that the violence was unjustified. Now, that was because there was considerable fury among police unions at his comments yesterday when he said that the killing of this 17-year-old boy was inexcusable. The police unions and Marine Le Pen on the far right said that is a matter for the justice system to decide. You do not decide what is excusable and inexcusable. And so he was very firm today in saying that the violence, which we have witnessed last night and the night before, before was unjustifiable. Marine Le Pen, so I've mentioned the far right, very much taking the line that justice must take its course. Jean-Luc Mélenchon on the far left has been seen to be rather casually generalising issues, and he actually condemned those people calling for calm and has been condemned himself for doing that. If you take a glance as well at social media, talk shows, what people are saying, there are two interesting ideas. One is people noting that had there not been this amateur video, that none of this would come out. And there are real comparisons
because at first there were different
Floyd.
Comments made, weren't there, afterwards?
Exactly. And,
yes.
and the comparisons with the George Floyd case there, that is a real fact that had that not video emerged, things might have gone very differently. The other comment that is being made is that this country should not be held hostage by the low-income banlieue. A number of people have pointed out that when other very, very serious, difficult moments have happened in France, for example, the beheading of Samuel Paty by Islamist terrorists, there was not an outpouring of violence, although there was widespread horror at that. And some people have been saying on talk shows, on social media, that the police have to be able to do what they're there for. When they go wrong, they must be judged, they must be held to account. But the police have a job to do, and ordinary people need protection.
Angela, great to have your context. Angela Diffley, our International Affairs editor.